The Marlins organization has a lot of players who play the same position defensively. What should they do? I'm going to talk about that on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. You can find me at Jeremiah Geiger2 over on X. And thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you hit the YouTube channel, subscribe, leave a comment down below. And on today's show, I'm going to be discussing the Marlins defensively. They have a lot of pieces, and they all seem to project to the same positions. First base and second base. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to discuss the new transaction alert. The Marlins signed pitcher Ronny Henriquez to a minor league deal. What that means, take a deep dive into his stuff and take a look at what he brings to Miami. And the future ace, possibly, for the Miami Marlins. He'll be in Marlins camp. Yes, Robby Snelling. I have high hopes for him. I'm going to tell you why. That is all coming up on today's show. I got the Marlins throwback hat on today. The old Florida Marlins, the teal. Maybe it's a sign of things to come with the City Connects. We'll see, but this is one of my favorite hats if you're watching on YouTube. Had to bring it out for today's show. The first time I'm wearing it, recording this podcast. So defensively, second base and first base is where a ton of players in the Marlins system, both the 40-man roster, the 26-man roster, and just the minor leagues altogether, really project to play long-term. There's not a lot of players, infielders in the Marlins system who project to be a true shortstop. Now, I'm going to give you some names, and every single one of them, the scouting report says the same thing. Projects second base, has limitations defensively at shortstop, would be a better fit at second. So we got Otto Lopez, of course. He's a second baseman, great second baseman. I expect him to be the everyday defender at that position for the Marlins in 2025. But then we look at prospects like Javier Sanoja, Jared Cerna, Max Acosta, Echedri Vargas. All these guys project as second basemen. And they're all highly ranked within the Marlins system. You've heard me talk about Jared Cerna, how high I am on his bat and what I think he can bring to the table long-term for the Marlins. I think he can be an above-average, everyday second baseman with extra base power. I love Jared Cerna. I can't wait to see his development this year. But he's not really a shortstop. He's projected to be at his best at second base. The Jake Burger trade over the winter brought back two guys who could play the middle infield, Max Acosta and Echedri Vargas, both of whom are ranked in the mid-teens if you're into prospect rankings. So not the top of the Marlins prospects, but still decent prospects you get back from Jake Burger. There's a lot of positives with them, but utility players / second base. Xavier Edwards is somebody who I've brought up before. Questions defensively, yes, there has been. Since he came up to the major leagues and started playing shortstop, it was almost out of necessity. It felt like the Marlins didn't really have an option after Tim Anderson didn't work out. Xavier Edwards comes up from AAA. He's hitting every single day, multi-hit games. We know what he does with the bat. Defensively, though, it always felt he was more of a second baseman. But of course, Otto Lopez is there. You needed someone to replace Tim Anderson. So that's where Xavier Edwards slides in. And it looks like he's going to be the everyday shortstop in 2025. Now, he battled a shoulder injury last season. It seems like he's fully healthy, according to him. He says the shoulder feels good. He's excited to see what he can do with a healthy shoulder going into opening day. And that makes me hopeful. That makes me excited that the arm strength is going to be a little bit better. Of course, you can't really improve the range as much with the shoulder. That's not affecting that. So hopefully the throws increase in power and accuracy. Now the range is still a question. It's not terrible, but again, he projects to be an everyday second baseman. So if you're following along, all these prospects, the two middle infielders currently projected to be opening day starters, they're not true shortstops. They're all second basemen. The opening day third baseman coming up, Connor Norby, he, again, played a ton of second base during his time with the Baltimore Orioles in their organization. A lot of second base. He's not a true third baseman, in my opinion. I think we're going to see that this season. But again, out of necessity, it feels like the Marlins are going to try to play him at third base the majority of the season because you need his bat in the lineup. He's not going to come over and replace Otto Lopez. But if you look at his time in Baltimore, he played a ton of second, and he can play left field. So further down the road, I wonder, do the Marlins consider moving Norby to a corner outfield spot? We'll see. We'll see what they do. If they make any experiment in spring training, let him flip-flop back and forth between third base and left field, moving pieces. Moving pieces is something that is going to continue to happen with this team. Same as it is at first base. We have Jonah Bride, Matt Mervis, both of whom limited exclusively to either designated hitter or first base. You take a look further past that, we got Davison De Los Santos, played third in the minors, but the scouts, everything about the scouting report says he's limited there. He's best suited at first base. So that's another name to consider. Could Davison De Los Santos, when he does get called up this season, just slide into designated hitter? And that's where the Marlins want to start building around him as their DH. Augustin Ramirez, another player. These are four players at first base, all of whom you could see up in the major leagues. I don't believe Augustin Ramirez is a long-term fixture at catcher. I just don't see it right now. Does that mean he moves to first or designated hitter? The good thing about the DH position is that when you have a log jam at first base with players who are limited defensively, you have that extra role at designated hitter. You could just slide one of them over there. But it's interesting to me, you have so much depth there. And does there come a point when the Marlins deal from this depth? They take a look and say, okay, so we have Starlin Cobb at shortstop. We truly believe in him long-term. He's the best glove defensively at shortstop. We have Xavier Edwards. Do we deal one of these prospects at second base for a true center fielder or a true third baseman? There's a lot of moving parts that you could consider. But coming up next, I'm going to talk about the new addition that the Marlins made today. They DFA'd Xavier Curry. They added Ronny Henriquez to a minor league deal. Of course, he'll be in spring training, a good chance to win a starting job. I'm going to talk to you about that right after this. We got a new ad, guys. We have a new ad today. Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you, unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. The fact that Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, it provides all 9 essential amino acids, is a complete plus, and they have the no shells variety. It's perfect grab and go for a busy day. If you're snacking at your desk on a road trip, or you just need a quick protein boost, guys, they are always a go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. It's like snack meditation. It's easy, grab and go. These green wonders, they are going to pack a protein punch. And of course, whether you're running between meetings, or you're dropping the kids off at school, going to a sports game, practice, whatever, wherever you may be, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back. If you're an everyday listener of the show, little thing I was thinking about today. What if we came up with a name for the everyday listeners? If you tune into Locked On Marlins, if you can't wait every day to hear new Marlins content and want to leave your thoughts in the comment section, like discussing Marlins baseball every day, let's think of a name for the everyday listeners out there. Of course, thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. A reminder, I put out on Twitter, do you guys want to see me do a mailbag episode every Friday? Incorporate that into the weekly schedule where I answer your questions for a segment or two, and just give me your thoughts, and I'll give you my best answers. So think about that as we move forward in today's show. I'm going to talk to you about the new Marlins relief pitcher / starter. Who is he? Ronny Henriquez comes over from the Minnesota Twins on a minor league deal. He's a ground ball specialist, guys, but that's not necessarily the only thing he does. When you dive into the numbers, 75-ish innings last season, split between AAA and the big leagues. He averaged about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. So he has some swing and miss stuff. Keeps the ball on the ground to get the majority of his outs. We like to see that. And he's in a position right now with the Marlins bullpen, with the Nardi news coming out earlier in the week that he might not be good to go for the start of spring training, and they're going to kind of slow his progression into game readiness. He has an opportunity to pitch his way into a big league roster spot. It's a minor league deal, but with a rebuilding team and an organization that is always looking for a new arm, a fresh arm, Henriquez finds himself in a really good position. Now, yesterday's episode, I talked about Jansen Junk and how Junk could possibly be both a reliever and a spot starter. Maybe Ronny Henriquez can do the same thing. He's started games before in the past. Now, last year he was used almost exclusively as a reliever. I don't know what the Marlins plan to do, because the guy they designated for assignment to take his spot on the 40-man roster, Xavier Curry, he was a guy who could be long relief option, give you 3-4 innings, and provide a spot starter option as well. So these last two acquisitions for the Marlins, both guys offer the potential to start. And it's going to be a storyline for me to be watching in spring training. How many innings do they go? Do they start a game and give you 3 or 4 innings? Do the Marlins plan to have their usage exclusively out of the bullpen, or could you see them start a game, be long relief, kind of how Braxton Garrett started out his tenure in Miami, was a spot starter. He came in, did some long relief, ended up pitching really, really well. As for As for Ronnie's stuff, he throws hard. He throws pretty hard, 95, 96 miles an hour. He's got a changeup, a slider, both of which during his stint in the major leagues last season with the Twins, 16 games, he threw more often than he did his four-seam fastball. So he's obviously very comfortable with his secondary pitches. And he's somebody that new Marlins pitching coaches, their head pitching coach, Daniel Moskos, hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's the first time I've said Daniel Moskos. We're going to go Daniel Moskos. That he can work with. Daniel can work with Ronnie and really refine his stuff, because you look at the analytics, the metrics, Baseball Savant has all those metrics, with the red being very well, you're in the higher percentile, and the blue being not so well. Ronnie's got a lot of red in his AAA profile. Of course, the major league sample size is still very small, but overall, I like what I see with him. I felt like he adds more value than Xavier Curry does. Curry just didn't have the swing and miss stuff that you want to see out of a relief pitcher. That's why he was really limited to the middle innings, the mop-up role, and kind of a spot starter guy. Henriquez does have more swing and miss stuff, and he has very good command. Last year, 2.7, just about walk per 9 innings. So the command is very, very good there. It's solid. And when you have his profile, who has starters experience, it's not a terrible acquisition, especially when you're not letting anybody super important go. The 40-man roster is going to change a lot over the next 5-6 months. Do not expect this thing to stay static. We're going to see DFAs. We're probably going to see new waiver wire acquisitions. His was a minor league deal, but again, I think he has a really good chance to come out of spring training and make the roster. The Marlins bullpen is entering a season where it looks a lot different than from years past. And I mentioned Andrew Nardi, who probably won't even start the season healthy. Of course, that's speculation, but from managers' words, Clayton McCullough, they're taking it a little bit slow. You know, he's not ready to go, it looks like. The Marlins 40-man roster, they have a lot of new names here who can compete for a role in the bullpen. And I see no reason why Henriquez can't. And I want to see if he ends up starting at all with that starter's experience. I just find it interesting. Both him and Jansen Junk have started before in the minor leagues multiple times and have that background. To me, I don't think that's necessarily a coincidence. So we'll see what happens. After this break, we're going to take a look at Robby Snelling. Yes, Robby Snelling coming over from the San Diego Padres in the Tanner Scott trade. What does he bring? Could he be the Marlins' next ace? Yes, I think he could be. I'm going to tell you why right after this. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Leave a comment down below. Thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. As always, leave your comments, subscribe wherever you go. If you're at the gym, if you're driving your car to work, we're on Spotify, Apple. Can't thank you guys enough. I'm thrilled to be doing this podcast and putting out some good Marlins content for you guys every day. Robby Snelling, one of my favorite prospects I want to talk about. Going into spring training, pitchers and catchers reporting today. Minor league players will be in big league camp. There's a lot of them. Robby Snelling is one of them. I think he is somebody who can provide competition for the Marlins in spring training. I don't want to see him start off the year in the big leagues for the 26-man roster. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think he's going to provide competition, and I do think there's a lot to like based off his time coming over from San Diego. He really struggled last season before he came to the Marlins, and then we saw substantial improvement from Snelling, which gives a lot of fans a lot of hope. If you looked at the numbers in 2023, the fastball velocity was there. The curve, his best pitch, that put away pitch, it was looking really good. And then at the start of 2024 in San Diego's system, it seemed like everything kind of took a step back. So Miami got him, and it was a small sample size. I understand, but there was a lot of positives as well. A lot of positives. Comes over, starts in Double-A, has 7 starts, ERA 4.25, 36 innings, struck out 41. So he has the swing and miss stuff. Gets 1 start in Triple-A right at the end of the season, 6 innings, 7 strikeouts. So that was his first taste in the Marlins system. And now he comes into 2025 with a chip on his shoulder, trying to prove that he can be that top prospect and stake a claim to being a very good pitcher, if not elite pitcher, for the Marlins in the coming years. He's a competitor, played football growing up, was an elite football recruit, a big, strong guy on the mound, lefty. He threw really hard coming into the draft a couple years back. Again, that velocity took a dive during the first part of last season, but his fastball, it doesn't really have great shape. What he does have is that flat approach angle, that vertical approach angle that allows deception and swings and misses in the top of the zone. There was a start last year, I believe with Pensacola, I watched, where he struck out 5 batters with the fastball alone. So 5 strikeouts just off that pitch. Swing and misses, called strike 3s. So it can be deceiving to hitters. And then you couple that with the slurve, which could be that put away pitch. There's a lot to like. You got to stay durable, of course. You have to work with the pitching coaches this spring, work with the organization to make sure that velocity stays consistent through all of 2025. You don't want to see him start out 2025 with the velocity back to 91, 92. I'd like to see that velocity go back to the 2023 season where he was sitting, 95, 94 miles an hour. We like that. We want to see that happen if you're a Marlins fan. And I expect him to start the year in AAA. Is he a candidate possibly to get called up at the end of the season? I'm not sure. I don't know how the Marlins are going to take his development. I don't want them to rush him. There's really no need to rush Robby Snelling because he's just so young. He's just 21 years old. So plenty of time with Robby Snelling. Pitchers and catchers reporting again today. So he'll be working with the Marlins coaching staff, trying to keep that velocity consistent, working on that slurve. But yes, I do believe he can be that future ace. What I saw out of him last season, especially coming over from San Diego, who historically has struggled developing pitchers, and they rushed the development of pitchers. We saw Adam Major. He got rushed into the big leagues. And you go back to 2023, Robby Snelling's dominating high A, he's dominating single A. Maybe the Padres rushed his development into Double-A a little bit, but either way, there was a great difference you could see between his time with the Padres and his time in the Marlins system. And I think that that's a testament to the Marlins organization, how they develop starting pitchers and pitchers in general. They're one of the best organizations at taking somebody and refining their stuff in the minor leagues, getting them good to go, so we see the impact later on down the road. The Marlins have a couple potential aces in their system. Thomas White is a guy who I absolutely think could be a frontline starter in the major leagues. I think he has that talent, if not more talent than Robby Snelling. And Noble Meyer is another pitcher. Struggles with command a little bit, but Snelling is more advanced. I think we see Snelling much sooner than we see, Noble Meyer and Thomas White. So it's a storyline to watch. It's a storyline to follow the first part of the season, while the Marlins are playing their first month of April and the major league games are back. Make sure you take a look at these prospects. Look at Robby Snelling. How is he doing in the minor leagues? I'm excited for what will be his first season, his first full season in AAA Pensacola. At least that's what everything points towards. And again, big left-hander with a big fastball that can, if it can stay consistent, that's the key. If the velocity can stay consistent and he can locate well. When it comes to pitchers who don't necessarily have great shape in their pitches, so the shape quality isn't optimal, but you have that good release point, you have that good approach angle, so you're still creating deception and you're still creating that swing and miss at the top of the zone. Location will be imperative. It will absolutely be important for Snelling to make sure he locates everything really well. Taking a look at the walks last year, it wasn't terrible at all. It was not bad his time in San Antonio with the Padres and Pensacola. It went down even more. 2.8 walks per 9 innings. That is really solid for a potential starter. AAA, how does it work? The hitters are going to be better. It's going to be a big test for Robby Snelling, but one of the players I can't wait to look forward to. Who will his battery mate be? Will it be Agustin Ramirez? Do they try to slot in Agustin Ramirez behind the plate in Pensacola? That is another topic to consider. I mentioned earlier about the position question marks surrounding a lot of these Marlins players, their limitations, if you will. Agustin Ramirez, I just don't see him catching long-term here. Does he start off in AAA? That bat he has is very advanced. He produces so much power and exit velocity and great contact skills. You want to see somebody with that profile at the plate stick behind as catcher. But I just don't see it's going to happen, because otherwise, why would you keep Liam Hicks? Why would you acquire Liam Hicks at the Rule 5 draft, which means he has to stick on the Marlins for the entire season on the 26-man roster? So I don't think Agustin Ramirez will stick behind the plate, and I think you're going to eventually see him make his way to first base or designated hitter. But AAA could be a very exciting team to follow. I know we're all Marlins fans. We're rooting for the big league club. We're going to be watching the big league team every single day. I get that. But keep tabs with the minor league team. I think Jacksonville could be a very exciting, affiliate for the Marlins to specifically watch, with Robby Snelling most likely starting there, unless they want him to start back in AA. I think he'll start in AAA. Agustin Ramirez, maybe he makes substantial improvements behind the plate, and you can watch that improvement happen over spring training. Davison De Los Santos and Graham Pauley. I wanted to mention him really quick before we get out of here. Graham Pauley is another guy who has major league experience, is limited defensively, third base, first base, DH type. It's kind of stiff at third, probably more suited toward first base, which creates an even bigger logjam over there, just like it is at second base. So Robby Snelling, maybe Adam Major in the rotation in AAA. There's a lot of players. Graham Pauley, where does he fit in? So Jacksonville, the Jumbo Shrimp, make sure you keep up with that. I'll bring you guys news and recaps and rumors of everything that happens down in the minor leagues, of course, every single day here on Locked On Marlins. And that's going to do it for today's episode. I want to thank you guys for listening. Stay safe out there, and let's go fish.